What's up, people? We're back with yet another episode of Talkin Lost, just because we've got so much other stuff going on. Actors Hall of Fames, Mission Impossible rewatches, individual top 10 lists that I'm uploaded. Doesn't mean that we're losing sight of the main goal, which, like I said, is we are recapping an episode of Lost every single weekend this year so that we could be done by this thing sometime by the end of 2026. Who knows? Like I said, there's a lot of episodes to get through, but we have season 2, episode 8, Collision. And it is very aptly titled because this is as we were just saying before the beginning of this stream, this is the wrap up of the first mini arc that we have been kind of building up progressively throughout the first quarter of this season, I will say, with kind of the smashing together of the two groups, paying off from 2 episodes ago, Abandon. And we also get a backstory of one of the new characters that we've been following for the last couple of episodes, Ana Lucia. And once again, this feels like a season 1 episode of Lost in the middle of season 2, which is part of the reason why this episode hits so much harder, I feel like, than the rest of the episodes.
Yeah, absolutely. It has that trope of POVs coming together, which I think Game of Thrones kind of perfected because you had so many instances of build up, and then the characters finally meet, and you finally get this payoff that you've been waiting for, and this does conclude this half arc of the season of the two halves of the plane finally coming together, and that sets up a whole new avenue of stories to tell.
Absolutely, all of that and more on today's episode of Talkin Lost. Oh man, it's kind of insane just how much that we've done just on the channel in between. I feel like the last time that we had the main plot versus now, because again, we've recorded 3 Mission Impossible rewatches. I've put up 1, 2 is scheduled to go up tomorrow around the same time that this goes up on Spotify. I did my top 10 Walton Goggins performances, which has been doing very, very well. Dustin and I did the Jack Black Hall of Fame last night in honor of Minecraft. And it's funny because, obviously, the episode is titled Collision. So obviously it's pretty obvious what's going to happen here. The two halves of, the island survivors, the tail end survivors, and our main group of survivors are finally going to interact, and also we've also had everything going on within the hatch this season. So this season has already introduced so many new elements and lore to the show in order to kind of help grow it out even more than what we'd already gotten to know in the first season. And obviously, 2 episodes ago, we had Abandon, which had a tragic bait and switch, making you think that Shannon was going to play an important part, only for her to get brutally and rather accidentally and unceremoniously shot by Ana Lucia in the woods. Then we have last week's episode where we kind of have, again, an entire season's worth of story compressed into 1 episode where we find out what happened during the first 48 days with the tail end survivors. Now we have the follow-up to that episode where, again, you pick up immediately from the ending of Abandon. Saeed is cradling Shannon's body. He immediately sees Ana Lucia holding the gun. He goes for her. Echo stops him, really has to put in the effort in order to take him down. But once again, Echo, kind of this voice of sage wisdom where Ana Lucia is like, he attacked us. We need to, prepare with how we're going to get to camp. Libby and Bernard are like, we need to get Sawyer to his camp or he's going to die. Echo is like, Sawyer attacked you because you killed a woman that he clearly cared about. What do you think his response was going to be? And so already you have all this immediate brimming conflict kind of coming up. And that's even before, so already this episode is kind of off to a fiery, explosive start. It's a very fast-paced, episode. Again, we have a lot of characters interacting, Echo decides to make the decision on his own to get Sawyer back to camp because, again, he knows that if Sawyer doesn't get back to camp, he's going to die. Ana Lucia has them tie Saeed to a tree, but it quickly becomes clear that she does not have any idea what she's doing. And we also get Ana Lucia's flashback episode. So already this is an episode that's throwing a lot at you just to start with. And of course, somehow, like all great episodes of Lost, they managed to tie everything together so beautifully at the end with another really, really impressive Michael Giacchino score.
Yeah, we've been a little slow in terms of progressing the plot in the last few episodes. Just like, okay, this is what's happening on the other side of the island. Not a whole lot. It's just kind of a few introducing character dynamics, a few flashbacks like Shannon, because we've had the 2 episodes in a row where they end at the same spot, essentially. And now we finally get past that hump. I'm sure we will see that tool being utilized again and again throughout the rest of the 3.5 seasons. But yeah, this episode is the true crossover episode. I feel like both for the audience, but especially for the writers, it's like, oh, we get a whole bunch of new toys in the toy box to play with. We can play on dozens of character dynamics. Who's gonna link up with who? Already we get Echo and Locke, which is like I'm very ready for that. I think
Yes.
those two, they're already like very mysterious on their own, but then putting them together is just gonna reach
Oh
a whole
man,
nother
it's
level.
just mysteries upon mysteries upon mysteries with those
You
two.
had Jack at the tail end of the episode reuniting with Ana Lucia because they met in the airport in season one, and just a whole bunch of dynamics. Uh, how people are going to interact with all of the survivors. I'm just excited to see what the writers have in store for us.
Yeah, it's a lot that they're playing with, really, and it's so much fun whenever you see it, and you realize you're like, oh, all of the buildup was worth it because it was all coming to this place, where again Sawyer kind of crashes through the Echo kind of crashes through the jungle with Sawyer on his shoulder after right when the survivors have kind of like on the beach have kind of like reached this sort of peaceful place, if you will, where like Jack and Kate are like settling into like a friendly competition of golf. And then all of a sudden, here comes this big giant dude who looks like one of the others carrying Sawyer on his shoulders. That's the other thing, too, also, is this is the first time, other than Saeed, that the mainland survivors are seeing, oh my God, like the raft people, it didn't work out for them. They're back on the island. So, because then, of course, once they start treating Sawyer, who again is basically on the verge of death, they basically say, yeah, the infection has reached his bloodstream. He's septic. He's verge of going into shock. Then Michael comes crashing in because Ana Lucia sent him to go and collect supplies ultimately because he's like, okay, we don't know what's gonna happen if and when they meet us. We don't know if they're gonna get the wrong idea. So Michael's like, okay, you're gonna go and get us supplies ultimately, and presumably because you think that she's gonna go off into the jungle on her own because she's like, nobody's ever gonna trust me at the end of the day. I kind of acted a little bit too impulsively. She knows she made a mistake, and that kind of ties us into her backstory, which we also get this episode. And man, like there's a reason. This is a season 2. This is a season 1 episode stuck right at like in order to like conclude the main trajectory arc of season 2, where again we're getting this incredible backstory to this character who we've already kind of gotten to know on the island over the course of the last 7 episodes, but we got a sense of, again, she's clearly a survivalist. She clearly knew what she was doing, but again, a little bit more hard edged, a little bit more less open to other people's ideas and responsibilities. She's more so, again, it's my way or the highway. And in this episode, we get that backstory. We see that where she was a cop in LA. She, she is just getting back onto the force after having recovered from from a shooting incident in which she was shot 4 times in the chest by a perp. Then. Of course, it's revealed that, her mom is the captain. So that, of course, again, created the whole, in this age of Nepo babies that we live in, that creates a whole new dynamic there. And then, of course, they potentially catch the perp. Well, first she's in a squad car riding with Abraham from The Walking Dead. Michael Kudletz gets into an incident where, a domestic dispute, of course, is they're trying to keep her safe. They're trying to keep her away from any of the action. She's like, no, fuck that. I want in. Of course, they get into a middle of, a screaming couple, lots of, you always see this instance with cops where it's like a lot of screaming noise, a lot of chaos, a lot of tension. Of course, what does she immediately do? She pulls out her gun. Michael Kudletz has to calm her down. They get back to the station. It's revealed that they have potentially found the guy who shot her. He's in custody. Ana Lucia's like, oh, it's not him. And even though you can clearly see in her face that she's lying, it is him. She just doesn't want him to go to jail. And you realize at the end, she wanted to track him down and kill him herself, ultimately, because she is that type of character. She believes in that kind of justice, ultimately. And of course, she reveals that, she was pregnant when she was shot. So this is already, again, a character that's got a lot of conflict, a lot of baggage showing. Everybody on the island ends up there for a reason. Like I said, this is a season 1 episode in the middle of season 2. So what did you think of just Ana Lucia's backstory right there?
Yeah, I've been watching a lot of The Rookie, just like as my off show. So this was very familiar territory. Cops in LA. Of course, Michael is also on that show in season 2 for a minor recurring part. But yeah, again with Lost, it's like you said, it's a season 1 episode. Like we've been following this character for a while now. We get the backstory and we understand why they are the way that they are on the island and just in general. So all that makes sense. Again, she's there on the island for reasons. Everyone is seemingly. And then again, as I said, I think 1 or 2 episodes ago, she's a spanner in the works just to create some more inner conflict for the islanders, because just having the others as a threat isn't enough to push a TV show for 24 episodes. So I'm excited to see how how that evolves, because she still shot Shannon. Like that's not
Yes.
just gonna go away. People are gonna not be too happy about that. So yeah,
Yeah.
again, I'm just curious to see how everyone folds into the grander equation. Is how to hatch the others, and I think now the ball will get rolling on the second arc of season 2.
Well, it's so funny that you brought up the whole thing of like, oh, how is everybody going to react to her having killed Shannon? Because again, it's kind of tackled in this episode and resolved in quite brilliant ways that I wasn't expecting. Because like you said, you have Echo meeting with Locke and kind of explaining what happened. You know, like the look on Locke's face when Shannon dies, and then obviously, you know, you get a little bit more of the man of science, man of faith conflict when you have Jack and Locke's individual reactions to Shannon getting killed. Jack immediately wants to go, is like, we have to go, we have to get revenge, and then Locke is like, look, it was clearly an accident, and they're like, they're one of us. They were all on the plane, you know, they're kind of on our side. So there's like a little bit of that conflict there. And then when Jack is about, and then Michael shows up, Jack is immediately about to go out there and like, you know, go in guns blazing, and Echo is like, what are you looking for? You know, justice, revenge, all of that. Like, Ana Lucia made a mistake. You know, she did not mean to kill this person. So going out there guns blazing is only going to create more problems. Again, finding solutions in ways that you never would think. And then, of course, once Jack hears Ana Lucia's name, he realizes, oh my God, like that confirmed. Because right up until this point, you also don't know if he can trust whether or not they are tail end survivors, whether they were on the plane. But hearing that name, that confirms. You're like, oh, they were on the plane. I know this person. You know, I had this connection with this person prior to landing on the island, you know? So you have all of that goes into it. And then you also have the conversation between Saeed and Ana Lucia as well, where you realize, oh, these two have more in common than you think, because again, obviously, Ana Lucia, it reveals it again. Her marriage crumbled after the loss of her child when she was shot, and we also forget Saeed also has lost love as well. You know, with the death of his love Nadia as well. So again, it's a thing of where
They're
it's like,
almost like another Kate Sawyer
yes, it's the
dynamic
shared kinship almost, sort of. Again, where it's like we've both lost loved ones. We're both kind of just fighting to stay alive, if you will, in more ways than one ultimately. Oh, it's so good. It's so fucking good. I love the writing on this episode. And then, of course, you have the beautiful, beautiful ending where it's like Libby and Bernard are both kind of like, yeah, we don't really trust your judgment. You've already shown multiple times throwing Nate in the pit. He wasn't one of the others. Now this thing with Shannon and Saeed, you don't really have the best judgment. So we're going to go. And Bernard has been saying since the beginning, he's like, I just want to get back to my wife. You know, I just found out after 40 days that my wife has been alive on this other side of the island. I just want to get back to her. And it is one of the most beautiful endings that of all of these episodes so far. You know, them walking onto the beach, them reuniting. You know, Bernard finally getting to reunite with Rose, them having that beautiful moment. Sun reuniting with Jin after they both thought that after Jin found the messages in the bottle a couple of episodes ago. Jack and Echo walking through the woods. They see Saeed and carrying Shannon's body, followed by Ana Lucia. It's this beautiful ending, this beautiful catharsis. The score is just going off heavy, and you can tell, like, okay, like the buildup is done. The collision that we were set up for has been resolved. All of the people on the plane are back together. Now it's time to kind of move on to the next arc on the island. You know, like I said, we still have kind of the overhanging existential threat of the season with the button and everything. And we still have a couple of lingering mysteries. But for now, the immediate setup of, okay, one section of survivors, another section of survivors was revealed to have been alive on the other side of the island. Now they are kind of back where they belong, if you will. And I just thought that was just a beautiful catharsis right there.
Yeah, it is. It does feel like a mid-season finale almost. You get all these plots resolved, because for once, Lost answered questions without bringing up new ones. There were no particular mysteries involved in this one, but it's a rare occurrence that I very much appreciate. That these emotional moments, like we'll have questions about the sci-fi crap, but when it gets to the emotional character stuff, they always seem to resolve those in a very good manner.
Yes, indeed, they do. And like I said, for now, like I said, shorter episode, but again, very, very well intentioned. Like I said, this is, again, Man of Science, Man of Faith was a very important episode in terms of setting up the new dynamic that we were going to be exploring in season 2. But for now, this is my favorite episode this season. And it is going to be very interesting to see where they go from here and where they top it. Because I'll admit, this is even an area where, again, I'll remember the individual episodes as I watch them. But from this point on, it's a mystery, because outside of this first section of season 2 and kind of the ending, like the immediate ending of season 2, there's a lot of season 2 that I don't remember. So it's going to be very interesting to kind of see where it goes from here. So, like I said, shorter episode today, but very well worth it. That was our recap of Talkin' Lost season 2, episode 8. Collision. Let us know what you guys think in the comment section below. Be sure to tune in next week for our next episode, which I believe is What Kate Did. We will be recording that on Monday next week, as well as our review of Sinners, which is getting a lot of early buzz. I'm very, very excited to watch that. I've been hearing excellent things about that. And also, stay tuned. Like I said, Luke and I are recording our Mission Impossible rewatch series, Mission Impossible 2, which was very, very entertaining to edit, even if the movie itself was not that fun to watch. Will be up on Monday. And like I said, I'm currently in the midst of editing 3. We're going to record Ghost Protocol this week. Also, check out my top 10 Walt Goggins performances if you haven't yet, and also mine and Dustin's Jack Black Hall of Fame, which we recorded last night. Luke, where can the good people follow you on the interwebs?
They can follow me at Luke Reviews on YouTube. Got some schoolwork that I'm working on, but as soon as I finish that, I'm hitting the Mission Impossible reviews. I do want to share. I finished Secret Wars.
Okay,
it's a comic. Like they all finish it in a day. Just every 5 pages, some random bullshit happens, and it's like, okay, whatever. Groot is Yggdrasil, sure.
Yes.
The Thing is a big wall. Galactus is like Franklin's babysitter, sure. So
Johnny Storm is the son. It takes a couple reads.
I'm like,
it takes a couple reads.
Yeah, sure, he's the son. Whatever. I will say the cover is kind of clickbaity because that doesn't actually happen. So I was like, okay, where is it? Where is it? And nothing happens, but it does become more of a personal storyline. So I'm hoping that the movie can expand a little on the world building of Battleworld, because we get the map, but we don't really see much of it. Like you get all these things like Limbo is in one, like the symbiotes are in another.
Yeah, there's a bunch of side storylines. But what the whole thing with Secret Wars is, once you realize that once again it is yet another, if anything, the ultimate Doom Reed storyline, where you realize that Doom used the conflict and the battle and the power to just steal Reed Richards' life. Once you realize that, you're like, oh, it all makes sense now.
Yeah, but considering we haven't really had any build up to that in the MCU, I'm wondering how they'll handle it. Who's gonna fill in what roles? Like, is Loki gonna be the Molecule Man type figure or whatever? Like, Miles is in it. He plays a somewhat significant role.
Yep.
Are they gonna swap him out for someone?
Exactly. And in the previous iteration of this script, which was going to be Kang Dynasty, Miles Morales is also in that script. So who knows? Who knows?
I'm just looking forward. Like, we're already getting the first few set photos of Doomsday. So
Marston and McKellen back together.
Yeah.
I'm excited. I'm excited, to say the least. But like I said, stay tuned for all of that stuff that we have going on in the channel going forward. This episode will be available on Spotify and Apple Podcasts tomorrow. And as always, people, get lost. We'll see you guys next week.